Hi, I'm Miss Emily from Kingston, Ontario, Canada, and I am here today on the Talking Blues podcast.
I know you've been asked this many times, but tell me about the name Miss Emily.
No problem. So what happened was about 10 or 11 years ago, longer than that, 12 years ago, I was working with a guy named Cliff Fabry. And Cliff Fabry is a manager of sorts. He's a Canadian guy, and he's best known because he discovered Avril Lavigne. And I was here in Kingston doing my typical bar gig situation, and we were connected, and he said, I really, really love what you do, but you're too old. And at the time I was in my mid to late 20s, and I had been told I was too old since age 15, 16. I mean, God, what is the right age? So, so after he said that, he said, I'd really like to work with you and put together an act essentially of what you already do, but I think we need to erase Emily Fennell, which is my birth name. And so he came up with this idea that we would use Miss Emily, and I was like, well, that's great. I mean, my mail comes Miss Emily Fennell, but at the end of the day, like if we were to Google search that right now, I'm quite sure there's a bazillion Miss Emilys. And he's like, I don't care. You're the Miss Emily. So it really wasn't totally my choice. But he was a guy with quite a bit of success and clout behind him. And really, I think it was a great move for me career-wise because everybody spells Miss Emily correctly. And they remember it easier. Sometimes I feel like it's a bit of a cheesy name, but it is easier than working with Emily Fennell. I did that for the first half of my career, if we were going to kind of split it in two parts right now. And everybody spells Fennel wrong. They pronounce it wrong, Fennel, and all these beautiful exotic ways. And it's just not. It's pronounced like the root vegetable, but with an extra L. I mean, it's not great. So Miss Emily has served its purpose. But the only thing is I feel kind of funny calling myself that. I just refer to myself as Emily.
Okay, so since then, had you ever thought about changing it back or not?
No, I mean, we've really invested so much in this brand. There's so many interesting things happening right now, especially I think in the blues genre or under the umbrella of blues. One of them is appropriation and conversations about race and music, which has been happening with Indigenous music. And I think now is really finally starting to happen in the blues world, which I think is great. And I want to be a part of that conversation. And it recently, somebody said to me, well, I don't know, Miss Emily might be offensive to some. And I was like, oh my gosh. I mean, my mail comes Miss Emily Fennell. So as much as I want to be a part, I want to be on the right side of that conversation. I don't see myself changing my name anytime soon. I think Miss Emily is really working for me. And I was married for a chunk of being Miss Emily. Not anymore, but I still liked being called Miss. So much better than ma'am, Mrs. Ugh, gross.
Good point.
I mean,
okay, I didn't mean to insinuate that you should change the name. I was just curious.
No. But I love that you asked that question because I love that. I love having that conversation about it. And now I have a new element that I can bring in because when I do interviews and stuff now, I always try and talk about appropriation and blues music. Not that I'm the best to articulate it. It's more that I just want to be part of the conversation. So. Okay,
because I thought, because you started really young, I thought maybe the names came when you first started because I think you were singing at county fairs at the age of 12 or 13 or something, right?
Yes. Yeah, quite young. And before that, the church circuit, age 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and national anthems for hockey games and stuff.
So tell me about your love of singing. How did that start? How did that happen?
Oh, I don't ever remember a time when I wasn't going to be a singer. I don't have memory before that time. And I was so little. And of course, all the photos of me as the little kid, I'm singing and I'm wearing costumes. And I was born with this disease called music and musician. And I don't ever see myself doing anything else. Turns out I'm a really crappy waitress. I tried that many years ago for like a hot minute. It was terrible. And thank goodness, because I might not have worked as hard in this field. But music, I grew up in a musical household. My dad did work as a professional singer on the side from time to time, starting in his teenage years. And my mom and him would do weddings and stuff like that. She's a piano player and a singer. But my dad's voice is my favorite singing voice. So when people say, who's your favorite singer? It's my dad.
What did you learn from your dad about the business of being a singer?
So my dad wasn't really a businessman per se. I think other people in the bands that he sang in did more of the business stuff. But I'm not totally sure on that. I should ask him. What I can say is the music listening in my household growing up was a key reason why I do the music I do. We had a record player. My parents never said to me, you can't touch that. It was always hands-on from day one. As young as I can remember, we had the piano and they encouraged me to, slam away on that. And I took music lessons. And the record player, we listened to so many old soul records in my youth. It was just, it's in my blood. I feel it in me so deeply, when, like, if I hear Ray Charles' voice, I cry. Look, I'm like about to cry just talking about it. I just feel that music so much. I just feel it so much. And so I think, I don't know why it speaks to me like it does, but it always has since I was a little kid. And I would sit and listen to music and cry. Like, I just loved it. And the more painful, though, I think one of the great things about old soul music is you get these extremes of great joy and great sorrow and pain. And I feel like that's how I've tried to make my music without even trying. That's just kind of how it's happened, and I think it's from that influence.
So if I would have seen you at a county fair in your teens, is it the Ray Charles and the Aretha Franklin that I would have heard?
A little bit, probably a little more veering towards Patsy Cline though, and old country, because I grew up in rural South End Prince Edward County. This is Prince Edward County before it was # the county. This is, you cannot have a boyfriend in your elementary school class because you're related to all of them. This is a different time. This is the 80s in Prince Edward County and 90s in Prince Edward County. It was a different world down there. So country music was really the main jam down there. So I've always had the same singing voice. It's always been low and deep and soulful. I call myself a soul singer because I feel that kind of encapsulates my voice more than any other specific genre of music. But I love applying that voice to different genres. And there's so much crossover in, like, if you listen to old Patsy Cline stuff, I mean, there's soul music in there, big time.
So I wonder, when you said that you couldn't imagine yourself doing anything else, I presume that that was it. You were going to, at one point, decide that you were going to be a singer. Do you remember what that point was?
Oh, as far back as I can remember. Like, I'm thinking before school. When I knew what it was. Come age 6, grade 1, my best friend, Natasha Pasternak, her mom was a full-time musician, Suzanne Pasternak. She's a great folk artist. She still works to this day at 71. And she was a real-life person I had that did music full-time. And she was a single parent. She had a daughter. She had a house. She toured around. She would bring us to folk festivals. She would write these folk operas and put us in the show because it was better than hiring childcare. And I was just the best friend. So I got to be around for all of that. I got to be on the front lines and see it happening. And that was age 6. So I remember before that knowing I wanted to do music and sing for a living. But then to have that right there in front of me in grade 1 is kind of, I think, very unique, and was incredibly influential for me, because then I had a real life look. I wasn't like, I'm going to grow up and be Celine Dion. I was like, I was going to grow up and be a real life musician, and maybe that would be the path, real success like that. But that's not what was put before me. It was, I like to say there's Beyonce and then there's the rest of us. You know?
Okay, so
Really?
you follow this path of wanting to be a singer. I think you went to post-secondary school for classical music.
I did. I did 2 years at Western for classical voice.
Okay, so tell me what you were thinking then. Like at that point, because I presume you were probably doing rock and soul and R&B.
Correct.
But the idea of going to Western for classical, what was the thinking behind that?
In my family, like my grandfather on my mom's side had a grade 8 education. And my grandparents were like another set of parents to me on both sides of my family. And my cousins were like siblings. The family was very close. But there was this real push for education. And there was a real push for success. Education and success. Not so much monetary success, but educational success. So lots of teachers in my family. And, you know, post-secondary was really encouraged and expected. And, you know, my grandfather didn't have that opportunity. So we also looked at it like that, like it was a duty. I really wanted to start my career, you know, in my early teens. I was pretty much ready in a lot of ways. And of course, the high school curriculum doesn't really offer much in music. I think I took one music class in all of high school, and that was a OAC, which would have been considered grade 13 class. They made special exceptions to let me in so I could just do the class, get a high mark to help me get into the university of my choice. But classical music that was the program that was offered. I mean, there were no soul singing programs at university. So I fast-tracked through high school. I did 9, 10, 11 OAC, skipped my grade 12 year, and went to university a year early. Did 2 years and realized, what the hell am I doing here? I just want to be a freaking singer. And I was already gigging on weekends. So I dropped out. I'm the happiest dropout you'll ever meet. And so it's kind of why I did it. And skipped forward to the rest of my life. I just do all these things to please people, and at 41, I'm just still trying to figure out what I want to do. You know? I still make decisions to make other people happy, but
do you
whatever.
really feel that way?
Yes, I'm terrible at it. I'm really terrible at choosing things to benefit me first. Me, my career, my situation, my family. My immediate family, so my daughter. I really want to please other people so badly. I don't know exactly why that's so innate for me, but I don't ever remember being a different way. So I'm hoping my 40s bring me to a new place of enlightenment with that.
I wonder how musically, how that has taken you. So I don't know if you choose the music that you sing somewhat to please other people, because I presume that it's not all about pleasing other people, but
No.
But the direction that you've taken in terms of the type of music you do or the songs that you might sing, is that greatly influenced by pleasing other people?
Way less so now. So my new album that's about to come out on September 30th, Defined by Love, is the most me album I've ever made in my whole life. My best friend, who's still my best friend from age 6, whose mom is the full-time artist, called me from LA and said, this is the most you I've ever heard. from you, and she's
Wow.
spot on. She really laid it out in specifics. She really articulated it well, and that's just summing up what she said. But she's completely right. I made a record, and I didn't do it to I didn't do it for expectations of others. I think because we lost so much during the COVID times, and it really brings you back to what is important to you. And if this is your last chunk of time on this planet, what do you want to be remembered for? What do you want to define you? You know? First of all, I want to be defined by love, and then I want to write music about it.
Oh, I presume as a young artist, it's difficult to know who you are. And I don't mean you, but anybody to find their own way. So as you get into the business and you record your first and second album, a lot of people don't know who they are or are still finding themselves. But I always figure that it's very difficult to actually write songs and create an album and to know that it's you, because it's not an easy process. So when you go through that in the first few albums, do you look at it as, oh, that's not really me, or do you know?
So I think when I'm in it, I don't really realize that I'm pleasing. I'm doing all this to please other people, or I'm doing a lot of it to please other people. I'm not sure. I just, I really am, it's like a discovery of myself with every passing day, week, month, year. And when I reflect back, I see it differently. I see, I think a lot of young artists will say that people have opinions, strong opinions. And I think as a young female artist, people had even stronger opinions. And I'm going to play the gender card big here. I'll bring it up a lot because I've embraced it so openly now. It's just, I see it so much more clearly, but everybody had an opinion, and I wanted to make everybody happy. I didn't want people to walk away from their time spent talking to me or working with me and be like, she wouldn't listen to me. She doesn't listen. I've got all this clout, I've got all this credit behind me, and she just wasn't paying attention. She didn't listen. I wanted everybody to think that I was listening. I was taking it in. I was appreciative of their time and their energy in what I was doing and investing their efforts in me. And that is true. I do appreciate it all. But sometimes if you don't take everybody's advice, then they think poorly of you, and or poorer of you. And that's exhausting. I mean, it was exhausting. It still is exhausting. But now I give less shits what people think. So.
But was there a time that you might have followed somebody else's suggestion or thoughts and thought, yeah, this isn't really me, but I'm going to go ahead with it?
Yes, for sure. So I can give you a kind of a cool example because I did some work with Gene Simmons 12 years ago, 11 years ago, 12 years ago. And he had a scout or something at a little show I did. And then the scout, kind of introduced him to my music. And then he called me on the phone. And we spoke for a while. He was really great. We had these great conversations. He made a point of saying, I love what you do. I'm sure people tell you all the time they want to change what you do. I don't want to change what you do. Also, I'm sure you hear all the time that you're too old. I don't think that at all. I think that's bullshit. I think everything that is you is exactly what it should be. I had never heard that in my life from anyone. And here it came from this very successful musician. And what came from that was he was coming through to Toronto. He was doing a book tour, and he wanted me to line up a showcase, essentially, for him. No problem. He said, you can have an audience or not have an audience. And I was like, I'm going to invite all my buds to come see Gene Simmons. Like, I'm no idiot. Like, this sounds like fun. Also, it's just fun to share the cool moments in life with people you love and care about. But what happened was that night at the showcase, he came on stage, interrupted me in the middle of songs, wanted me to do all these weird, bizarre movements, started saying in front of these people, including like my father and stuff, like, you need to pretend the microphone is a phallic object and blah, blah, really graphic shit. And like, I'm not precious. I can hear all that stuff, whatever. But to hear it in front of my dad and to have somebody say that to me in front of my dad was embarrassing for me, for my father and some of my loved ones. And, I was super polite. I did all the things. At the end of the night, I receive a document, we'd like to sign you. And I said, no, thank you. But I went along with it. I went along with it while he was there. I didn't want to embarrass him. I was by far the most uncomfortable person in that room, but it was most important to me to make everybody else in that room not feel uncomfortable. And I think I did a decent job at it. Given the circumstance.
So this person who tells you that he doesn't want to change you, he likes you the way you are, comes on stage while you're performing and tells you to change things.
Yeah.
So what are you thinking about his motivation at that point? Like, I understand that you want to make everything not uncomfortable, but how do you experience that and go, this is a good thing or whatever? Like, what's going through your head at that moment?
So I am open to suggestions. I really am. And I don't think I know everything, not even close. And I know there's so many much smarter people out there who can really benefit me in my career. And I don't think he wasn't one of them. So some of the suggestions he had to me are not bad suggestions. It's when you start getting into a sexual nature and it turns into something that now is like, it's like talking down on me or talking down to me and taking me from here to here to here to here to right underneath. It's gross. And like, I really am open to suggestions. And some of what he suggested was like really positive. For instance, he said, I met him the night before this showcase and we're in the bathroom, the men's bathroom at the Horseshoe. And it's like me, a guy named Sean Marino from Universal Music, Gavin Brown, well-known producer, drummer, a bunch of burlesque dancers, Gene Simmons, and me, and my best friend, Natasha. And Gene and Natasha and I are in the bathroom, the men's bathroom, and he's like, I feel like we could do something with your hair. And I'm like, what are your ideas? And he's like, I think you should do a bang across. And Tasha's like, this is a great idea. Next day, I go get my haircut, bangs. I had bangs for 10 years. I loved it. It was a signature look. It looked great. Thanks, Gene Simmons. I get compliments on my hair all the time. Like, Gene Simmons shows that. So, like, I mean, sorry, that's a long story. But it is a funny example of the fact that, like, I really am open to suggestions. I'm open to the process of people having opinions, and that potentially could better what I do. But, then there's things that are completely unreasonable. And I've been on the receiving end of those from many different people. But that particular instance was a special and easy one to bring up because it sits kind of right here in the memory bank.
Was it easy to say no to him? Because, you never know what could have turned out.
Yeah.
And probably it wouldn't have worked out based on...
No, probably.
Yeah, but you don't know. So was there a moment where you thought, did I do the right thing?
So, yes. And here's the thing, because of course now I've disappointed people, right? If I say yes, I've disappointed people. If I say no, I've disappointed people. So I know I can't win that. I did have a toddler at the time. My daughter was really young, maybe four. Anyway, she was really young. And so there was that aspect of it. And honestly, I looked at the bigger picture of it and I thought, okay, he's clearly going to try and sexualize the shit out of this act, and I'm very open-minded. And anybody who sees my act, there is an aspect of sexuality in it, and I embrace it fully, and I love it, and I am who I am. But I had this little girl that I'm raising, and I thought, at some point in time, she's going to look at me and be like, Mom, is this, like she might have some deep questions. And if I can't answer those in a a thorough way that I think is a good parenting way, then I'm going to really disappoint her, myself, but also I'm going to really, well, no, I mean, I'm going to disappoint her. And like, I want to please people, but I want to please the most? My kid. you know, she's the voice that really matters.
For sure. Okay, so a few things come to mind when you tell me that story. But I'm going to ask you, if we go back to 2004 when you decide that you want to be a full-time musician or become professional, can you tell me what your idea of success, and maybe success is not the right word, but what your goal would have been at that point when you first started? And I will probably ask you later on what it changed to, that what goals have changed. But at that point, can you give me an idea what you saw?
For sure. So I really just wanted to be able to make a living. And in many ways, for an untraditional career choice, I'm a very traditional person. I wanted to get married and have children, have a mortgage, a house and car, and drive my kid to soccer practice and do all those things. And there are a bunch of us who do that in this industry, but I wouldn't say we're the majority. It doesn't feel that way anyways. So my goal early on was just to be able to make a living, essentially. And I was okay with modest living. That wasn't a thing. I've always been pretty resourceful. So I just wanted to be able to pay my mortgage and pay for my baby, and live a fairly normal, Leave It to Beaver life while doing music.
And so did you have goals to say, I mean, that's a goal for sure, but did you have things to say, in 5 years, 10 years, I want to reach this, or this is what I want to do, or was there such a thing, or was it all about, I just want to be working and I want to be paying my mortgage?
So, for sure, the main thing was I want to be working and paying my mortgage. I didn't dream big. I do now. I wish I started a long time ago. But I was raised in an era of like modesty where like, as a kid was like, don't look in the mirror and be modest. And so I think that unfortunately it's so weird. Like, I don't know. I had a Christian upbringing. My parents are great and stuff like that. But like, it was a lot. I thought I was like this ugly person for like most of my first 20 years of my life. I had no idea that I was not hideous. It's so weird. I mean, I think how you value yourself as a child really comes through in your adulthood, and I'm still making changes and getting therapy. My parents did a great job. Thank you, parents. Appreciate it. But the reality is, I just didn't dream big. Now I see it so differently, but I really just wanted to make enough money to have a fairly normal, quote unquote, normal life with a family. And it wasn't until like 10 years ago that I was like, actually, I want to be recognized by the Junos. And actually, I want to tour other parts of the world. And actually, that's when things really started to kind of, broaden in my dreams.
Why do you think, why did that happen? Is that just an age thing? Is it just growing older and thinking differently, or is it something else?
Yeah, it is something else. I could tell you exactly what it is. So I was married for 7 years to a man. We were together about 10 years. And when I met him, we were from different planets, quite literally from different planets. He was 10 years older than me. He was divorced. He had 2 kids. And he owned a very successful car dealership in this community, and came from a very wealthy family. And I am about opposite of that in all the ways as it comes. But we really, we loved our kids. We had all this common ground in how we were very traditional and how we enjoyed, making the most of life in other ways. So that really brought us together for 10 years of my life. But one of the things I really learned from him and from his family is they have, he knows no different than the best of the best. He's never struggled financially really a day in his life. He comes from a completely different upbringing and school of thought of what he expectation. That fascinated me. And he had no guilt of it. He had no qualms, but like, no, this is just, you should expect the best. We should always have the best. The best is ours for taking it. Like, why shouldn't we have the best? And although I don't think I ever fully subscribed to that to the fullest extent, I learned a lot because he would dream up things like, a renovation on the house, and then we would just do it. We would just make it happen. I mean, and he made a really good living, but there was still stuff out of our reach, but he just found a way. It was like, no, he just expected the best and bigger and better. And because he expected it, he got it. And 10 years you live in that life and you watch it, because I felt like I was in many ways watching it from I was never fully immersed in it. I really kind of watched it from the outside looking in and still. Hence probably why the marriage ended, but one of the reasons. But I did learn a lot. It did teach me that if I don't dream it up and I don't have some expectation of where this career is going to take me, it's not going to take me anywhere. I don't want to be Beyonce. Easy. That's an easy thing for me to know. But do I want to tour around the world? Yeah, I want to see the world. That seems like a pretty cool way of seeing it. Do I want to make music and play concert halls instead of bars? So like people are actually listening to what I'm doing and clapping and buying merch. And then I get to meet even more people. I love people. Yeah, I do want to do that. And without that influence, I don't think would have started reaching further in my career.
Okay, so you're playing bars up and down the 401 corridor,
Yes.
working your ass off,
Yeah.
raising a child. You come across this idea that I need to set goals and that I want to reach higher.
Yes.
How do you do that? How do you reach higher so that you do get a Juno nomination, you do get Maple Blues Awards, but how does that happen?
So I take a look at who is crushing it in the Canadian music scene. And the first thing I do is try and figure out what genre I fit into. Because being a full-time musician, for years I was playing 250 or so bar gigs a year. Generally, they were bar rock. And I would write music specifically to accommodate the audience of that specific bar that I had the gig at. I was a jack of all trades in a lot of ways. Master of none. But at the end of the day, I have this voice. My voice is my voice. I've never tried to change my voice. I have a deep soul singerish voice. So what genre most closely fits to that? Blues. That's what I figured kind of. And then I thought, well, music is production. How do you produce the music around it? I love all music. I've been listening to soul music and blues music for many years, but I wouldn't have ever considered myself a blues singer particularly. But when I started trying to streamline my goals, I realized, well, I need to really focus on what I actually do. What is my brand? What type of demographic do I fall into? Where's going to take me from point A to point B in the most direct way? And the first step was finding a genre. And the great thing about blues music and soul music or rhythm and blues, stuff that falls underneath the umbrella of blues, is we have blues societies all over the world. It connects this huge worldwide group of people, all ages, all races. It's amazing to me that way. So that was a real draw. And then we have blues festivals. Wow, festival, concert goers that go to blues series shows. There's all these opportunities under that umbrella as well. And then we have Juno, Blues Album of the Year is a category, You get into the Grammys, you have like contemporary blues album of the year or traditional blues album of the year. They've streamlined it even more in two different things, but and blues radio on satellite, on the web. And then we have things like Women's Blues Review. You know, I had looked from afar at a show like Women's Blues Review and be like, wow, these artists play Massey Hall. And then I look who's doing it and I'm like, I could be on that bill. How do I get on that bill? Okay, who runs this? The Toronto Blues Society. Okay, who are members of the Toronto Blues Society? How can I connect with them? Okay, nobody's returning my emails. Looks like I have to try harder. Who do I know who's connected to those people? Who's connected to those people? Who's connected to the Toronto Blues Society? That's exactly what I did. I worked backwards and I worked my ass off because I've always worked my ass off, but now I've learned how to work so much smarter. I still put in 60 hours a week, there's no doubt, but damn it, I'm way smarter than I was, and I only want to get smarter.
So you were able to achieve some of those goals. Mm-hmm. So at this point, you have a new album coming out. Tell me about what your new goals might be now that you've had, you haven't won the Juno, but you got your nomination. You've gotten recognized by the Maple Blues Awards.
Amazing for me.
So tell me, looking forward, how has those goals changed and what are you striving for now?
They are still big ones on the list. 1 year, 2 years of that is not going to cut it for me. I want to really solidify myself in that place where there's recognition. Someone said to me, oh, the recognition doesn't matter. Bullshit. It absolutely matters to me. It might not matter to everybody, but I can tell you right now, it's something tangible that I can go back to my family and say, I didn't get that university education, but here's a Juno nomination. And how many people get those, And it's not like, I shouldn't really have to prove it to anybody, but I really have to prove it to myself. I hold myself at such high standards. I don't know that I will ever meet those standards. I will always find the higher level of the ladder that I want to achieve before I can really ever pat myself in the back and take a breath. So I still feel like the place that I'm in, Maple Blues Awards, I've been recognized in that field, but what about album? What about my album? Is my album worthy of an album nomination? I hope so. I hope I'm making a record that might be considered for that. Or amongst the beautiful and incredible talent that are generally and frequently nominated, I want to be in that world. I want to be recognized with those people. And with the Junos, yeah, I'd love to win it. In the meantime, if I'm just meant to be nominated because the competition is fierce, which it is, there's so much talent, there's so much good music. There are people that work harder than me and who are better than me. And that just makes me want to celebrate them. But then also it inspires me to work harder and be better. And so I'd like to also, I now work with some like Grammy nominated and Grammy winning artists and talent, and so now I'm like, oh, the Grammys are on my radar. Why wouldn't they be? I don't sell out big theaters all over the world. That'd be nice. I don't sell out big theaters all over Canada. That'd be nice. Kingston does well for me, and I get to do some really cool shows with my friends in Downchild and be a part of that. So I'm riding their coattails quite happily. But the goal is I want to get up there. I want to have that type of following.
Well, I mean, obviously the fact that whether it worked out or not, the fact that somebody like Gene Simmons recognized you, there are other people who have had success, who have approached you and worked with you. I mean, that's obviously speaks a lot about who you are. What do you think it is about you that attracts that attention?
Well, I think it's definitely not my age because I've been told I'm too old for the last 15 years. So it's definitely not that.
How does that make you feel?
I don't care anymore. Well, I don't think people don't really say it anymore because I'm in my 40s and I'm still doing this. And so I'm like, I think people are just like, whoa, we don't say it anymore. Talk about a woman's age in her 40s, the fact that I just wear it with pride. I mean, I would just like, I'd tattooed on my face, except it's about to change in 6 months, so I better not do that. Oh, look, I go off on a tangent, then I forget what the question was. You know, I think part of it is my authenticity. I mean, I feel like I repeat myself sometimes in interviews, like, but it's really just because my answers are consistently the same. I mean, my thoughts and feelings do evolve as I get older. You know, if we were looking at an interview of me 10 years ago or even 5 years ago, it'd be different than now. But I like to put it all out there. I don't, you know, if I'm sad, I cry. If I'm happy and joyful, I laugh. If I'm feeling something, I say it. I try not to be rude, but sometimes I'm rude. And
Aren't we all?
I don't mean to offend, but sometimes I offend because sometimes what I have to say or think or feel is offensive to some. And I just like am like really open about my shit. I mean, all of it. The career stuff, the personal stuff. I just, where are the boundaries? Please don't show up at my doorstep. I like having my privacy of my home. And the rest of it is kind of out there. I mean, in this industry, for me anyways, I feel like that's one of the things that connects me to people more than some other artists, is I'm not afraid to connect myself in a personal way. And I think that might be something of what makes me appealing to other people sometimes. I'm not the best singer. We know I'm not the best singer. We know I'm not the best. I don't do the best high kicks on stage. Can't do cartwheels. I don't know. I'm not the best guitar player. I'm not the best writer. I do these things fairly well, I'd say, but like there's lots of people better than me. So I don't know. I think maybe just that honesty, something special.
Okay. The other goal was to travel, and you've done some traveling. How did that come about? How did you get to Europe? How did you get to the States?
Oh, so I have this really great manager. His name's Gord Hunter, and he's based out of Kingston. And our relationship didn't start off, he didn't start off as my manager. I met him because he helped run an organization in Canada called Light of Day. And it's the Canadian division of a worldwide organization that's based out of New Jersey. Light of Day raises money for Parkinson's disease research and other neurological diseases. And my songwriting mentor, Marinus van der Tot, passed away due to complications with Parkinson's disease. And I always wanted to raise money for that cause. It was very important to me, but there didn't seem to be anything I could, anything really I could do in that arena. And then Gord reached out to me because he was doing a Kingston show, and that's how we got connected. And 6 months later, I find myself in New Jersey at the main Winterfest Light of Day Festival in January 2015, and I'm standing on a stage next to Bruce Springsteen and all these other incredible artists who are all raising money for this cause that means so much to me. And I thought, that's it. These are my people. This is my organization. I will do anything I can to help this organization, because here they bring people together through music, raising awareness and money for an important cause. And the artists benefit because they bring us to all these cool places to help present their cause. And it's this beautiful, cyclical, rewarding thing for everybody. The charity wins, the musicians and artists win, and the fans and the supporters of the cause win. Like it's one of the most beautiful working charities, if not the most, that I've ever worked with in my life. And so it's actually the Light of Day organization that I first went over to the UK with. They do like a Songwriter in the Round series, and I'm there with Grammy-nominated artists like Guy Davis and, really incredible people, incredible talent. And then December 2019, I actually went overseas with them. We did UK, but then we also did Europe. I did Europe with them, Denmark and Italy and Sweden and Germany. And it was just like, wow, Belgium, like, wow, this is crazy. And all the shows are sold out pretty much. And people are buying my CDs and loving my music. And during the lockdown, there's all these people still connected to me through my social media outlets, listening to my music, asking when I'm able to come over again. Oh my gosh, if that's not a gift, I don't know what is as far as charity work is concerned. But now I have my own following overseas. I can go over on my own, and I hope to get back to doing that. I have done it once on my own, to the UK, once or twice on my own, but I'll get back to a place where I'm doing that again. In the meantime, I look forward to doing more with Light a Day, in the coming year.
You mentioned the pandemic. I get the impression the pandemic wasn't very kind to you.
Yeah, I mean, like it wasn't for anyone, I guess, but
But obviously, as an artist, it's a difficult thing, and you went through some other things.
yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if we can say we're coming out of it, but how has that experience changed you?
Well, I will say I felt early on in the pandemic, I was very lucky. My husband at the time was a car dealer who had a mechanic shop. They were deemed essential. So not only was he in business, but he was doing the best business ever, and so we are doing well in a pandemic. Me as a musician, I mean, my heart is broken like all my other musician friends, but I'm not partnered with a musician like many of my musician friends, and they're figuring out how they're going to pay their rent and stuff like that. I did not have to get CERB. I did not have to do any of these things that so many of my colleagues were doing, and I didn't have those struggles. But then in the second summer of the pandemic, my husband decided he wanted to end the marriage, and he was going to keep my house. Our house was no longer going to be my daughter and my house. And there was a housing crisis. And then I couldn't get a mortgage because I'd been unemployed for a year and a half because of the pandemic. And then reality just like punched me in the face hard. I mean, so I don't want to complain too much about the pandemic stuff. I do feel like we're coming out of it in a lot of ways, but a lot of our listening population who goes to these theater shows is in a demographic that they're still a little scared about what this disease could do to them, this illness. So, and I get that. And so they're a little more cautious on going out in public or buying their tickets. I'm about to do a couple album release parties, and it's selling tickets is a different thing because people wait until the last minute because they don't want to buy a ticket. What if they're sick? And they wouldn't dare go out if they're sick for a number of reasons. So, and we don't want them to. We want them to stay home and get better. And so people aren't buying tickets to the last minute. Well, then it's like promoters are like, we're going to pull this show because the tickets haven't sold. And the people are there and they might go to the show or probably will go to the show, but it's a risky business and it's scary a bit. I guess I have to find a lot of festival work because festivals seem to be feeling the pinch a little bit less. I don't know, that could be completely wrong information, but the festivals seem to do okay this summer, whereas the concert halls were still edgy. I guess festivals are outdoors generally, so that helps. It's going to be a process. People say, oh, you're back. I'm like, no, I'm not. 40%, I would say.
How are you doing?
How am I doing?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm good. Actually, I'm crying. I'm good. I'm scared a little bit for how it comes back. I have work this fall. I'm really excited about that. But then January happens, and I mean, January, February in Canada as artists, we're always like, we're banking shit from the summer because it's January and February, and I mean, like 50-50 chance the roads are closed,
Right.
And that's fine. I chose this business. I'm in this business for all the reasons, and it comes with all the risks like any self-employment person, I don't want to complain, but I'm in a different world because now I'm on my own with my daughter, so I have to look at things a totally different way. I mean, she's going to university soon. Like, wow. Oh gosh, and we came from a life very different for the last 10 years because I was married to somebody who made very good money. I mean, I could lie to you, but what's the point? So I don't really know how things are going to pan out. I am okay, but I do have a lot of fear. And I'm not sure if anything will fully take it away right now. I think it's just a process. I'm kind of fragile, obviously, I guess. But I've tried to turn my fragility into, bring it into a place where I can say, what is this going to do for me? Is this going to break me down, or is this going to make me work harder? Is this going to build a stronger person at the end of the day? What can I control? There's so much I can't control. What can I control? And then I take the shit I can control and I go overboard with it. So
okay, so
some of that I think is healthy, but
so tell me about your new album. You referred to it. Obviously, it's exciting to come up with a new project. Yes. So tell me a little bit about the background behind these songs, Defined by Love, and you also said that it's probably the most used. So tell me about the album.
So this album was produced by Steve Mariner, and that was not planned at all. We kind of fell into that by just going into the studio one day and trying some stuff at the Ganaraska Recording Company, beautiful studio owned by Jimmy Boskill. And I ended up, I was supposed to make a record in March of 2020, and it was going to have different songs on it, and it was going to be a different record. This is, for the most part, a completely different record than what was going to be made. A lot of the music was written in the last year, and much of it was stuff I didn't think would ever see the light of day, not live or recorded. Steve forcefully told me I had to play everything in my book for him. And then he was like, nope, we should record this. And then we did. And gosh, he was right. He was so right. We ended up getting a lot of really happy music. And I don't know if that was my own self-soothing mechanism of a challenging year, but I feel really good about the general happy demeanor of the record. It's a feel-good album. Like, it makes me feel good.
How does happy come out of what you've gone through? How does that happen?
I think self-soothing. I think trying to create an alternate reality. You know, when I'm in those, when I'm writing a song, I go into a moment. I go into a time in my life. I always write from personal experience. It's just how my method is. And, you know, having to escape some of the tough stuff, I found myself revisiting happy times. And that inspired me to make music written about these happy times. And I'm so grateful for that, because I really do believe it was its own form of therapy for me. And continues to be. I've never wanted to listen to something I've recorded so much before. I don't know this feeling. Usually make a record and then you're like, done, finished it, did it, done. You know, you can be proud of it and stuff, but I never listen to my stuff. I listen to this thing on repeat. I love it. I love it so much.
Well, that speaks volumes, I think.
Yeah, and it has some of my favorite players on it, like Keisha Winch. I don't know if you've done an interview with Keisha. Keisha's an amazing singer based out of Toronto. Mm-hmm. And I met her doing an Etta James tribute that Ross Robinson put on. And she absolutely glows, this woman. And she's always smiling. And then when she sings, all this like beauty and joy comes out through her voice. And when I was dreaming up the characters I wanted on this record, I was like, hey, Keisha, would you sing on this record? Like, I need a lot of backup vocals, and she's so talented, and she's really good at building parts and stuff. And so when I hear her voice on this record, I'm like, there's Keisha. I can picture her big smiling face. Like, she's just so glowy and enthusiastic, and I don't know, I that's part of it. Anyways, I just, makes me so happy. This record makes me so happy.
I can see that.
And nobody even knows about it. Like, you know, like nobody's heard it. It's but I'm excited.
Well, congratulations. I mean, that must be such a great feeling to come up with an album
Thanks.
that you're really proud of. I know that it's a weird time, and I know that there's a lot of uncertainty, but I mean, it's great to see you smile talking about your new project.
Thank you. Yeah, it feels good. It does feel really good.
So let me finish off by asking you again, what at this point in your life does success mean to you? What is success?
Success to me is working in an upward direction. I want to be better. I want to get better as a singer. I want to get better as a songwriter. I want to work with more talented people who help bring me up to the next level, inspire me to work harder and to get better. I want to play more places. I want to meet more people. I want to make more records. I want to sell more records. I want to tour and perform in bigger venues and for more people. And I want that to grow for the rest of my life. I want that to grow.
Well said. Miss Emily, thank you so much for taking this time. It was a real pleasure meeting you.
Thanks, Margo. It was great to meet you too.